Howdy readers, I'm Jason, this is Chapter and Verse, and I am going to do a haul video today. And I can't remember actually the last time I did a haul video. I should go back and look. I think they're more infrequent on my channel these days even than tags are. But, we've just come through Christmas, although strangely I actually didn't get any books or movies for Christmas. I bought myself a book, but I got a lot of fishing gear, which was really nice because I've been getting back into fishing this last year with my brother, which has been really good for my soul. Even though I haven't caught anything yet on the couple of trips that we've had. My birthday was this month as well, and I've just been depressed and just have treated myself to a couple of things to try to kind of lift my mood. If I'm blinking strangely or kind of squeezing my eyes shut, it's because I'm having some trouble with my eyes here the last couple of days as well. Like they're just incredibly dry and raw and sore. So if I'm just squishing my eyelids together, that's why. But I wanted to just walk you guys through the films that I've got recently and the books that I've got recently. So there's 4 Blu-rays, and we're looking at 7 books, I think. So the first Blu-ray that I'll show you is The Day After Tomorrow, directed by Roland Emmerich. And Roland Emmerich is a filmmaker who, he's like a slightly more talented version of Michael Bay, I suppose. He's like Michael Bay if Michael Bay was in touch with his sensitive side, I guess is maybe the best way to put it. There's a lot of Roland Emmerich stuff that I don't like, but there's some that I do really, really love, including Anonymous, about William Shakespeare, and this one here, The Day After Tomorrow, which is probably my favorite kind of just popcorn apocalyptic entertainment. And I think I had been in mind of it a little bit recently because I watched Don't Look Up on Netflix. And I liked Don't Look Up more than it seems like many people do, although I did have a lot of problems with it as well. If you've yet to watch Don't Look Up, the main reason for watching it is Leonardo DiCaprio. He gives one of his best performances, in my opinion, in that film, and you know that he's brilliant in it from literally the first 10 seconds he's on screen, which is pretty cool. It's just quite a feat for an actor. This is about climate change and an abrupt change in sea temperatures that brings on a kind of very sudden ice age, and it's great fun, and it's scary, and it's moving at times, it's thought-provoking at times, but it's just well done. It's one of those great big wonderful popcorn spectacles, right? That's a little bit ludicrous, a little bit silly, but also just kind of undeniably gripping. So if you haven't seen this, you should absolutely check this out, The Day After Tomorrow. And then I got last year's Best Picture winner, Nomadland, directed by Chloe Zhao, which was my second favorite film of 2020. And it's funny because it actually didn't come out until early 2021. But because of the pandemic, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences extended or opened its window of eligibility for 2020 films to include January and February of 2021. So it was really like a 14-month window of films to be considered for the Oscars, whereas the Oscar nominations coming out here in just a week and a half or so for 2021 will be a shortened window, so a 10-month window for the Oscars. But Nomadland was my second favorite film of 2020, and God, I consider and say, oh, well, it's beautiful, it's this, it's that, and it's all of those things, right? I mean, just like list the adjectives. But what I love most about this film is how it feels like a love letter to the American West. All right. And yes, I mean, it's about, people being disenfranchised and, making a kind of sustainable go at having been disenfranchised, right? Figuring out how to reinvent their lives. But the landscape in this, right? And Chloe Zhao's sensitivity to it. I mean, her instincts and her intuition about how to shoot the American West is it's really just something to behold. And I mean, the film is magnificent for all kinds of reasons, right? For its social commentary and for its performances. But what I love most about this is that it feels like a Valentine to landscapes that have been my home my whole life. So yeah, this is a wonderful, wonderful movie. I think it's on Hulu right now. If you guys haven't seen it yet, no need to rush out and buy the film. I think it's on Hulu. The next film is another movie directed by Chloe Zhao, and that is The Rider. So after I saw Nomadland, I sought out her first two films, right? Nomadland being her third. The first was, I think it's called Songs My Brother Taught Me, or Songs My Brothers Taught Me. And the second is The Rider. And The Rider is, I mean, the first film is quite good as well, but The Rider is every bit as good as Nomadland. I mean, this thing is just absolutely magnificent. And again, right, as with Nomadland and her first film, a lot of the performances in her at least her first three films, it's not true of Eternals, but a lot of the performances are done by non-professional actors. And the guy who plays the central character in this movie, this film is about his own story, right? But it's not a documentary. It's kind of this weird blurring of documentary and feature filmmaking, and it's so beautiful and it's so stirring, and it made me cry so hard at the end, and it was rather unexpected. As I'm kind of moving my way through the film, I wasn't expecting to cry, and it really shook me at the end. It really, really shook me. So yeah, if you guys haven't seen this is worth looking for. Hers is a career, Chloe Zhao's is a career that I couldn't be more excited to follow, to see what she does next, right? I mean, I'm even going to watch Eternals. It's on Disney Plus now. I have no interest at all in the MCU. I lost patience with comic book films some years ago. But I'm gonna check it out to see what a director of her aesthetic can do with a comic book film. That by itself intrigues me. Is it going to be as good as The Rider? I can't see how that could even be possible. But yeah, that's just because this is, it's just tremendous. So. And the last Blu-ray I wanted to share is a new release in the Criterion Collection. And this is a film that I saw twice in the theater when it came out. It never went to Cheyenne, where I lived. I saw it in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I saw it in Portland, Oregon. And in both cases by myself. The trip to Fort Collins, which was about an hour south of Cheyenne, my dad drove me down there and dropped me off so I could see the piano. He went to the lumber store and did dad things. And then he came back to the theater and then saw In the Name of the Father with me, directed by Jim Sheridan. So it was kind of a double feature for me. And then I was on a school trip to Portland, Oregon, when I saw the piano, when I should have been doing stuff at the conference that I was there for. But instead I was wandering around downtown Portland, buying books and drinking coffee and going to movies. So that is The Piano, Jane Campion's The Piano. And of course Jane Campion has been in the news a lot lately because her new film, The Power of the Dog, is the most acclaimed film of 2021. And it's a marvelous movie, but it's not a patch on this. I haven't seen all of Jane Campion's films, but I've seen The Portrait of a Lady. I've seen In the Cut. I've seen Bright Star. And it's a Bright Star? Yeah, the Keats film, yeah. Which is actually one of my favorite films of the 21st century. But The Piano is just one of a kind. It came out in 1993. It had the misfortune of being released the same year that Schindler's List was released. In any other year, almost any other year, The Piano would have just swept all of the awards up in that year. But again, Schindler's List is one of, I don't know, it's one of the best 10 or 15 movies of all time, in my opinion, right? The Piano's there on my top 100 as well, but I mean, Schindler's List is just kind of untouchable, really. But The Piano is one of a kind. It really is one of a kind. Yeah, I've been watching a lot of special features on this, and Campion was greatly influenced by Wuthering Heights in making this, which could explain my love of it, I suppose. I read Wuthering Heights probably just a couple of years after I saw The Piano for the first time, and you know, and I suppose I wasn't aware of it at the time, but I imagine that the stories kind of chimed within me. But isn't that cover artwork just something else? And I'll show you the disc as well. The disc is so pretty. Yeah, let's get it straight in there. Yeah, so there's the disc of the Criterion release of The Piano. So if you've seen The Piano, let me know what you think down below. It is, yeah, it's a movie that I just never tire of. Now on to the books. The first book is the book that I bought myself for Christmas. And I've been reading it. I'm a little more than halfway through it. And it is intensely disappointing, we'll just say. And that is Better Living Through Criticism, How to Think About Art, Pleasure, Beauty, and Truth by A.O. Scott. Now, A.O. Scott is a film critic for the New York Times. And he's been my favorite film critic since I read his review of Steven Spielberg's AI back in, God, what year did that come out? 2000? Was it 2000? 2002 maybe? Anyway, about 20 years ago, 22 years ago. And his review of AI just, like, it felt like it could have been written by me, right? I mean, it was, and I'm not saying I'm a writer at his level or anything like that, although I like to think I could write a better book than this. But it was what he had to say about AI. Like, it was like he was articulating what was in my mind and heart about that movie in a way that I've never seen any other critic do with any other review. So that was kind of amazing. And so I've just been following his career closely since then. When this came out a few years back, I was just super keen to read it, right? I mean, who wouldn't be keen to read a book called Better Living Through Criticism? But man, it's really terrible. Now, there are some wonderful things in it, like little moments, little insights. But on the whole, I can't remember the last time I read a book that was this unfocused and this pretentious. And that's not a word that I tend to throw around, because I do really like reading kind of academic critical work and whatnot. Stuff that, most kind of lay readers would assume is pompous or pretentious. But this really is. And I think it is in part because from the introduction, the book is aimed at, and it's published by a popular press, Penguin, right? It's not published by an academic press. This is not a university press title. But from the introduction, he lets it be known kind of who he intends this book to reach, who his audience, his dream audience is for this thing. And that audience is going to be so put off by the tone of this book. I just don't know what he was thinking, actually, in writing it. But yeah, it's unfocused. It's bloated. I have no idea. If he had written a book that seemed like he wanted to write, from what he has to say in the introduction, that would have been magnificent, but the book is not that. And maybe the worst part about it is the title. I can't imagine that he chose the title. Somebody at Penguin had to have picked this title, and he had to have agreed to it for some reason, but the title has shit all to do with what's in the book. Nothing, right? And that's the thing that's most frustrating about it, is because every time I pick it up, I see the title, and I'm reading my way through it, and I keep wanting the book to be what this promises, and it's not. And so anyway, so that's one. That's a book that I'll be finishing and in all likelihood getting rid of. And the next one is the Folio Society Oxford University Press kind of joint edition of Titus Andronicus, right? I have always wanted some of these little folio editions of the Shakespeare plays, right? And as we can see, I mean, it's all acid-free paper. You know, wonderful notes there throughout the play, wonderful introduction. But they're $40 each, right? They're $40 each, and granted that's inexpensive for a folio book, but it's really expensive for a book. But they just had the New Year's sale, and select folio titles were marked down. In some cases, tremendously so, right? Their 2-volume box set of Parade's End by Ford Maddox Ford, which is regularly priced at $160, was marked down to $40. Okay, these and it wasn't all of the volumes. There was like 5 or 6 Shakespeare plays that were marked down. And by the time I got around to looking at them all, a couple of them, As You Like It and Twelfth Night, were already sold out. But I love Titus. We didn't already own a standalone copy of Titus, and so I bought this, and it was marked down from 40 to 10. So that's why I got it. And it's just really, really, really beautiful. This thing is going to last a lot longer than any other Shakespeare we have on the shelf over there. The next book is a favorite of mine, which I've talked about at length a couple of times in a couple of videos on my channel. And it's the first in a trilogy. And I haven't bought the trilogy because the third book, for whatever reason, his American publisher didn't round out the trilogy. And so the third book was published by a completely different press. And so the design of the third book is completely different from the first two, which really pissed me off because I love the design of the first 2 books. And I love the first 2 books, but I haven't bought the trilogy because I can't bring myself to even read, let alone buy the third book. I'll get around to it eventually. So I decided, screw it, and I'm just going to buy the first book. It's my favorite of the first 2, and I'm just going to kind of treat it as a standalone in my collection, and that is Dark Eden by Chris Beckett, which is one of my very favorite, probably my very favorite science fiction novel. And it won, where is it at? This one, I think it won the Arthur C. Clarke Award. Yeah, it did. And I just love it to pieces. I have friends who don't like it very much. Mark Nash, Celia, I know, I love you guys. You guys are brilliant. I wish you would like this more, but that's fine. I understand why someone might not love it quite like I do. That's the thing, right? Like, all of our tastes are so different. We're all looking for different things in the books that we read, and yeah, I mean, as much as we want people to love the things that we love, we can't expect them to. We just can't expect them to. So if you've read Dark Eden, let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd be curious to know. All right, so the next one, this is a book that I had never heard of before, and I probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago maybe, I saw it at the library, and I just thought it looked cool and sounded cool, and I checked it out, and I didn't get around to reading it, and then later I checked it out again and didn't get around to reading it, and I've probably done that 4 or 5 times. So I finally decided it was time to just buy my own copy before the thing goes out of print. It's published by a little press, or a little imprint maybe of a larger press. Soft Skull Press is who this is brought out by. But this is The Salt God's Daughter by Eiley Ruby. And I'll just read the description of it on the back to you, since this is a book that I've never seen featured anywhere on BookTube. And so it might be something that others among you might find interesting as well. Set in Long Beach, California, on the coast of an enchanted ocean, The Salt God's Daughter follows the hard-scrabbled life of Ruthie and her sister Dolly, whose faith in their mother's magical stories is only outshone by their belief in each other. Imbued with a traditional Scottish folktale and hints of Jewish mysticism, The Salt God's Daughter is an exhilarating meditation on maternal love and the enduring bond between sisters. So, yeah, so that is The Salt God's Daughter. All right, 3 more. The next book is a collection of short stories by my friend Brady Harrison, and it is called The Term Between, and this is a brand new book. Right, this is brought out by 12 Winters Press, and Brady was a professor of mine in grad school, and he's the only professor I had in grad school with whom I became and have stayed friends. And he was just a brilliant instructor. He's also one of the funniest people I've ever met. But yeah, just there's something really mischievous about the guy. He's incredibly well read, and I'm curious to see what I make of his fiction. So yeah, I was really happy. I bought this as soon as it was available. These are short stories in large part about the American West. So again, right, if you're a fan of maybe a writer like William Kittredge or Wallace Stegner, maybe Kent Harif, these are probably going to be short stories that you would really respond to. So, The Term Between by Brady Harrison. And then I have a mammoth, right? This is not going to be the mammoth I'm going to read for this March. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with March of the Mammoths as a BookTube event, watch this space, right? Me and my co-hosts will be posting our announcement videos for it, I think next weekend, if I remember right. So, yeah, and essentially what that is, right, in the month of March, we encourage everybody to read a novel that is 800 plus pages long. And this year I'm actually going to be reading one that I've wanted to read for a very, very long time now. But it's a favorite of my wife's, it's a favorite of my brother's. And I'm finally gonna dive into it. But this is one I may read for next year. And this is A Moment in the Sun by John Sayles. And right, wait for it. Look at that thing. Look at that. Like, look how big that fucking book is, right? It looks like it would be 2,000 pages long, but it's not. It's about 900. Is it 900? No, it's about 950, so it's almost 1,000 pages long. But yeah, it's just like a big, sprawling American epic that I've wanted to buy for donkey's years now, and it's been out for about 10 years, I think. It was published by McSweeney's. I wish I had the hardcover, because McSweeney's hardcovers are really special. They're just really beautiful. It was like this, right? But I mean, it would have been, I don't know, like it would have been textured, and whereas this one isn't. But yeah, this was reviewed in book form by none other than William T. Volman, of course, right? The king of big, giant, unwieldy books. But yeah, A Moment in the Sun. It's about early 20th century America. And when I read Kelly the synopsis of it, she's like, that sounds like Dos Passos. That sounds like a kind of USA influenced novel. And I think it very much so is from everything I've read about it. So, A Moment in the Sun by John Sayles, Mammoth. And then the last book that I picked up, also in the New Year's Folio Society sale, I picked up the complete poems for Christopher Robin by A.A. Milne. And there's the spine. There's the box that it comes in, right? The slipcase, which is just really, really beautiful, as you can see. And there's the cover. Yeah, just lovely. So I thought I'd read you a poem or two. This is called At the Zoo. There are lions and roaring tigers and enormous camels and things. There are buffalo, bisons, and a great big bear with wings. There's a sort of tiny hippopotamus with a tiny rhinoceros too, but I gave buns to the elephant when I went down to the zoo. There are badgers and bidgers and bodgers and a superintendent's house. There are masses of goats and a polar and different kinds of mouse. And I think there's a sort of a something which is called a wallaboo. But I gave buns to the elephant when I went down to the zoo. If you try to talk to the bison, he never quite understands. You can't shake hands with a mingo. He doesn't like shaking hands. And lions and roaring tigers hate saying, "How do you do?" But I give buns to the elephant when I go down to the zoo. And if you can see the illustrations as well, right? It's really, really beautiful. Yeah, I'll show you some more illustrations. Look at that. Yeah, Pooh Bear climbing up the stairs after him. Yeah, Folio Society books. If you've never ordered, right? If you're a collector of books, if you like books as artifacts, as objects, as much as you like reading them, check out the Folio Society. Right? I've been buying their books for years. I don't have nearly as many, say, as somebody like Mark Richardson, who has an extensive collection of them. But but I think Kelly and I probably have a couple dozen, maybe 18, 24 Folio Society books, and they're they're expensive, but good Lord, are they well made? And they're just beautifully crafted works of art in themselves, right? I mean, I'll leave a link to the Folio Society website down below in case you're just curious to browse. So, well, that's it. That's January haul. Books and movies. Let me know what you think of any of these things in the comments below. And I will see you guys again very soon in my March of the Mammoths announcement video. So until then, adios.